Lurian Commander Raxor smirked as he stared at the primitive, rusting human warships littering his view screen, confident they posed no threat to his powerful alien battle fleet. "Sir, those derelict ships appear to be centuries old. No life signs or power detected. The humans are extinct," reported the science officer. "Excellent. Their warships are now space junk. Earth will be an easy conquest for the Lurian Empire," Raxor replied coolly. He opened a channel to his superiors. "This is Commander Raxor. The human defenses have crumbled. Their once mighty military is nothing but dust and echoes. We will take this world unopposed." Raxor watched smugly as his gleaming silver ships glided towards the silent, drifting hulks that were all that remained of Earth's space navy. Humanity was finished, a dead race to be swept aside so the Lurians could strip their planet bare. But just as Raxor started to savor his inevitable triumph, the impossible happened. One by one, the derelict human ships lurched to life. Running lights blinked on, engines flared blue, and kinetic guns swiveled to lock onto Lurian targets. On the bridge of the revived ESD Midway, Captain Donald Turner clenched his jaw as he studied the master display. Angry red Lurian icons surrounded his battered fleet in a web of crosshairs and threat vectors. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they weren't outmatched. "All hands to battle stations. Warm up the EMP cannons and prepare for close-quarters engagement," Turner ordered. Frantic activity erupted in the bridge as his crew rushed to carry out his commands. They all knew this was humanity's last stand. If they failed here, Earth would fall to the Lurian vultures. Humanity's homeworld would be ravaged for its resources until nothing remained but a lifeless husk. They had to hold the line, no matter the cost. Alarmed by the sudden stirring of the human ships, Commander Raxor hurriedly instructed his fleet to assume attack formation. "Don't let those primitive rust buckets rattle you. Our technological might is unrivaled," he assured his crews. "Burn them from the sky and proceed to planetary invasion." The Lurian ships accelerated to attack speed, bearing down on the human defenders like a pack of hungry wolves. They still underestimated their seemingly primitive enemy. That changed when a torrent of electromagnetic energy erupted from the human fleet, blanketing the Lurians with sensor-blinding static. Targeting computers crashed, engines sputtered, and comms channels drowned in ancient Earth music and bloodthirsty war cries. In the mayhem, the human ships struck like vengeful ghosts, materializing out of the interference to pummel the Lurians with merciless kinetic and missile barrages. Raxor watched in stunned disbelief as his command dissolved into a firestorm of shattered ships and panicked screams. The wrecks of Lurian warships drifted through the void, still smoldering from the devastating human counterattack. Inside the battered hulk of his once proud flagship, Commander Raxor slammed his fist on the sparking command console. He seethed with humiliated rage as he watched the human fleet, which should have been nothing more than ancient relics, mop up the last of his forces with ruthless efficiency. "Get us out of here," Raxor growled through clenched teeth. "Maximum burn for Luria Prime." The remnants of the invasion fleet limped away from Earth, leaving a trail of debris and frozen corpses in their wake. As they made the jump to hyperspace, Raxor brooded on the catastrophic turn of events. The humans had played possum, luring the Lurians into a trap with their seemingly derelict ships. It was a trick that had cost him dearly. When the battered fleet finally reached the glittering spires of the Lurian homeworld, they were greeted not with triumph, but with shock and dismay. The High Command was stunned by Raxor's grim report. The humans had not only survived, but had roundly defeated the cream of the Lurian military. It was a humiliation they could not let stand. In the grand throne room of the Imperial Palace, the Lurian Emperor himself addressed the assembled commanders. His voice was cold with barely contained fury. "You have failed me, Raxor. Failed the Empire. The humans should be crushed beneath our boots, their world ours for the taking. Instead, you slink back here, beaten by a race we considered extinct. This is unacceptable." Raxor bowed his head, not daring to meet his sovereign's piercing gaze. "Your Majesty, I take full responsibility. The humans caught us by surprise. It will not happen again." See that it does not, the Emperor snapped. I want a plan to subjugate Earth and its upstart defenders. We will grind them to dust and take what is rightfully ours. Fail me again, and the consequences will be severe. As the Lurians plotted their revenge, a very different scene unfolded on Earth. Captain Turner, the hero of the hour, was met with cheers and jubilation as he stepped off the midway onto the scorched tarmac of the New York spaceport. Tired but jubilant, he accepted the accolades with humility, insisting that the victory belonged to every man and woman who had stood their ground against the alien threat. But even as the celebrations reached a fever pitch, Earth's leaders met in somber conclave. Turner's daring defense had bought them precious time, but they knew it would not last. The Lurians would be back, and in greater numbers. Humanity's survival hung by a thread. In the austere war room, Turner faced a grim-faced president and her assembled cabinet. The room was dominated by a holographic display of Earth's ragtag defenses, a motley collection of mothballed ships and ancient weapon systems, many predating the discovery of faster-than-light travel. Against a concerted Lurian assault, they would be so much driftwood before a tsunami. We need allies, Turner said bluntly. Alone, we don't stand a chance, but if we can convince the Galactic Council to stand with us, we might just have a shot. The president nodded slowly. Agreed. But it won't be easy. We're the new kids on the block, and we just bloodied the nose of one of the big players. The council might see us as more trouble than we're worth. Let me take the EDS retribution to the council headquarters, Turner urged. I'll make our case in person, but I'll need a show of strength to back up my words. You'll have it, the president promised. The retribution will go, and she'll take our best ships and crews with her. Godspeed, Captain. The fate of Earth is in your hands. As Turner's hastily assembled battle group blasted off into the stars, Lurian scouts lurked in the shadow of the moon, their passive sensors drinking in every detail of the human fleet's composition and course. This information was relayed back to Luria Prime with cold efficiency, fodder for the war machine that even now was gearing up to crush humanity once and for all. The EDS retribution and its accompanying fleet sailed through the void, a glittering arrowhead of human defiance against the darkness of space. On the bridge, Captain Turner stared at the main view screen, his eyes fixed on the distant glimmer of a nebula. It was a sight of breathtaking beauty, but Turner had no time to appreciate it. His thoughts were consumed by the monumental task ahead, convincing the Galactic Council to stand with Earth against the Lurian threat. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. Captain, multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace. The sensor officer shouted. It's the Lurians, sir. A whole damn fleet of them. Turner's blood ran cold. The Lurians had anticipated their move, lying in wait to ambush them far from any potential allies. On the view screen, the sleek, predatory shapes of Lurian warships filled the screen, bristling with weapons. A hail from the lead Lurian ship cut through the tension on the bridge. Turner nodded to his comms officer, and the sneering face of Commander Raxer appeared on the screen. Captain Turner, Raxer drawled, his voice dripping with contempt. I must admit I'm impressed. I didn't think you'd have the guts to show your face outside your little mud ball of a planet. Turner's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice level. We're not here to fight, Raxer. We're on a diplomatic mission to the Galactic Council. Raxer threw back his head and laughed. Oh, that's rich. You really think the Council will side with a bunch of primitives like you? No, Captain. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to surrender right now, or I'm going to blast you and your little fleet to atoms. Turner's response was to cut the comm link. He turned to his crew, his eyes hard. Battle stations, all ships. Prepare to engage. As the crew scrambled to their posts, Turner activated a secure channel to engineering. Is the package ready? Affirmative, sir, came the reply. The EMP is primed and ready. Just give the word. Turner nodded grimly. The EMP was Earth's secret weapon, a last-ditch gambit that could turn the tide of battle. But it was untested, and there was no telling what the consequences might be. On the view screen, the Lurian ships were closing fast, their weapons glowing with deadly intent. Turner took a deep breath. It was now or never. Activate the EMP. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a blinding flash erupted from the Retribution, a searing wave of electromagnetic energy that washed over the Lurian fleet like the hand of an angry god. Raxer, on the bridge of his dreadnought, had a moment to register the look of shock on Turner's face before everything went black. Across the Lurian fleet, power systems failed catastrophically. Lights flickered and died, engines sputtered and went silent. Weapons, life support, even the most basic functions, all were consumed by the ravenous EMP. On the bridge of the Retribution, Turner watched in awe as the Lurian ships drifted helplessly, their crews no doubt scrambling in the dark. "All ships engage at will!" he barked. The Earth fleet surged forward, their weapons spitting fire. They tore into the helpless Lurians with savage fury, explosions blooming like hellish flowers against the starscape. On his crippled dreadnought, Raxer could only watch in disbelief as his fleet was systematically obliterated around him. His grand ambush had turned into a slaughter, his mighty ships reduced to little more than target practice for the upstart humans. In a final, desperate gamble, Raxer gave the order to overload the dreadnought's reactor core. If he was going to die, he would take as many of the humans with him as he could. As the conquest exploded in a brilliant fireball, the shockwave caught several Earth ships in its destructive embrace. Metal screamed and hulls buckled under the onslaught, and more than one proud vessel was consumed by the flames. In the aftermath of the battle, the Earth fleet limped away from the field of debris and drifting wreckage. They had won the day, but the cost had been high. As Captain Turner surveyed the damage reports flooding in, he could only hope that the sacrifices of his brave crew had not been in vain. The road to the Galactic Council and Earth's salvation was now open, but the wounds of this battle would linger long in the memory of those who had fought and died under the uncaring stars. The Earth fleet limped through the void, scars of battle marring their hulls. Captain Turner sat on the Retribution's bridge, eyes fixed on the view screen. Ahead loomed the Galactic Council Station, a behemoth of metal and light orbiting a distant neutron star. "Incoming hail, sir," the comms officer reported. "It's the station's security force." Turner nodded. On screen, a stern face filled the view screen, alien but authoritative. "Earth fleet, state your intentions." Turner stood tall. "We come in peace, seeking an audience with the Council. The Lurian Empire has committed unprovoked aggression against Earth. We need the Council's help." Silence stretched. The bridge crew exchanged tense glances. Finally, the reply came. "The Council will hear your case. Proceed to Docking Bay 7. As the Earth ships glided into the cavernous docking bay, Turner turned to his senior staff. "Commander Hawkins, the fleet is yours. Keep them ready for anything." Hawkins saluted. "Aye, sir. We'll be at high alert." Turner and his delegation disembarked, leaving the safety of their ships behind. An escort of station security led them through winding corridors to the heart of galactic governance, the council chamber. Stepping inside was like entering another world. Tiered seats rose in a vast circle, filled with a kaleidoscope of alien races. A hush fell as the humans entered, 100 eyes watching their every move. Turner strode to the center of the chamber, back straight, chin high. He met the gazes of the counselors, some curious, some disdainful. Earth had been absent from these halls for centuries. "Counselors," Turner began, his voice ringing in the stillness, "I stand before you today as an emissary of Earth, a planet under siege. The Lurian Empire, unprovoked and merciless, seeks to conquer our world and strip it of resources." He paused, letting his words sink in. "We have fought them, at great cost. But we cannot stand alone against the might of an empire. We implore you, the guardians of galactic peace, to intervene. The Lurians' actions threaten not just Earth, but the stability of the entire galaxy." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some counselors nodded thoughtfully, others shook their heads unconvinced. Heated debate erupted, voices rising in argument, but before any consensus could be reached, alarms shattered the air. On the chamber's view screens, a chilling sight unfolded. A massive Lurian fleet, dreadnoughts and battle cruisers in attack formation, weapons primed. They had tracked the humans here, to the very heart of the galaxy, intent on finishing what they started. Panic gripped the chamber, but Turner, calm in the eye of the storm, raised his wrist comm. "Hawkins, execute Plan Omega." On the Earthships, klaxons blared as crews raced to battle stations. Engines roared to life, weapon systems hummed with deadly potential. The fleet moved as one to face the oncoming enemy. There would be no retreat, no surrender. This was the final stand. The fate of Earth, and perhaps the galaxy itself, would be decided here, among the stars. Captain Turner sprinted through the Galactic Council Station's winding corridors, his boots pounding on the polished metal floors. His officers matched his frenzied pace, hearts racing as they rushed to rejoin their fleet and take the fight to the Lurians. But as they rounded the final corner, they skidded to an abrupt halt. A phalanx of heavily armed Council security forces blocked their path, weapons leveled at the humans. The security chief, a hulking alien with a face like a clenched fist, stepped forward. "Stand down, Captain," he growled. "The Council has ordered you detained until this matter can be resolved through diplomacy." Turner's jaw clenched. Diplomacy? With the Lurians? They only understand one thing: force. If we don't fight now, they'll roll over this station and Earth. Billions will die. The security chief's expression didn't flicker. "That's not your call to make. Surrender your weapons and come quietly." Turner's hand drifted towards his sidearm. His officers tensed, ready to spring into action. The air crackled with tension, violence a hair's breadth away. Suddenly, a voice cut through the standoff. "That won't be necessary." A figure emerged from the shadows, tall, cloaked, radiating an aura of quiet power. He lowered his hood, revealing sharp, angular features and eyes that glinted with intelligence. "Ambassador Zoran of the Aetheri," he introduced himself. "I've been observing these proceedings with great interest." The security chief bristled. "This doesn't concern you, Ambassador." Zoran ignored him, focusing on Turner. "Captain, I believe you are correct. The Lurians cannot be reasoned with, but you cannot face them alone." With a casual gesture, Zoran deactivated the security team's weapons. They sputtered and died, leaving the guards gaping in shock. "Come with me," Zoran said. He led them at a brisk pace through a labyrinth of corridors, finally emerging in a vast, dimly lit hangar bay. Sleek silver ships gleamed under the low lights, unlike anything Turner had ever seen. "Aetheri fighters," Zoran explained, "equipped with advanced cloaking tech and weapons that can slice through Lurian shields like a neutrino knife. Take them. Use them. Stop the Lurians here before it's too late." Turner could hardly believe it. "Why are you helping us?" Zoran's expression was grim. "The Lurians threaten us all. Their expansionism, their disregard for life. It cannot be allowed to continue. You and your people, Captain, may be the best hope for stopping them." Turner clasped the ambassador's hand. "Thank you. We won't forget this." As they climbed into the alien ships, Zoran's parting words echoed in their ears. "Remember, Captain, the Lurians aren't your only enemy here. Trust no one but yourselves." The Aetheri ships knifed through space, invisible and deadly. They sliced into the heart of the Lurian formation, catching the enemy completely off guard. Chaos erupted as the Lurian ships frantically tried to locate their attackers, only to have their shields shredded and hulls pierced by weapons they couldn't see coming. The tide of battle had shifted in an instant, but as Turner watched his fleet press their advantage, Zoran's warning nagged at the back of his mind. If the Lurians weren't their only enemy, then who else was lurking in the shadows, waiting to strike? On the bridge of his dreadnought, Admiral Zarak slammed his fist on the console as his fleet reeled under the onslaught of the combined human and Aetheri forces. His ships, once an unstoppable juggernaut, now struggled to contain the nimble fighters that danced around them, slicing through their shields with impunity. "Enough of this," he snarled. "Deploy the boarding parties. We'll take this fight to their doorstep." From the bowels of the Lurian fleet, a squadron of massive, heavily armored craft emerged. Each one bristled with weapons and carried hundreds of the Empire's most elite shock troopers. They broke formation, streaking towards the Galactic Council station with grim purpose. On the Retribution's bridge, Turner spotted the incoming threat. "Hawkins, take a team of Marines and intercept those boarders. We can't let them reach the Council." "Aye, sir," Hawkins replied grimly. He gathered his men and raced to the transporter room. Moments later, they materialized on the station, weapons ready. The corridors were already echoing with the sounds of battle as the Lurian troopers clashed with the station's security forces. Hawkins led his team into the fray, their pulse rifles spitting blue fire. The Lurians were well-trained and heavily armed, but the human Marines were fueled by desperation and raw courage. They fought with a ferocity that matched the alien invaders blow for blow. Through twisting corridors and sprawling atriums, the battle raged. Hawkins was a whirlwind of action, his rifle blazing as he cut down Lurian after Lurian. But for every enemy he felled, another seemed to take its place. They were being overwhelmed by sheer numbers. A blast caught Hawkins in the shoulder, spinning him around. He hit the ground hard, his vision swimming. Around him, his men were falling, cut down by the relentless Lurian advance. With a grunt of pain, Hawkins dragged himself to his feet. "Fall back!" he roared. "Seal the bulkheads!" The Marines retreated, fighting every step of the way. They managed to close the blast doors, cutting off the Lurian advance, but at a terrible cost. Over half of Hawkins' men lay dead or dying in the station's halls. Back in space, the situation was growing equally grim. The Aetheri ships, for all their advanced technology, were simply too few to turn the tide. The Earth fleet was being whittled away, ship by ship. On the Retribution's bridge, Turner watched the tactical display with a growing sense of dread. They were losing this fight, unless something changed, and soon they would all be dead. Then an idea struck him. "The EMP," he said. "Can we modify it? Use it to disable the Lurian fleet?" His tech experts exchanged glances. "It's possible," one of them said, "but we'd have to get dangerously close to their ships to make it work." Turner nodded. "Then that's what we'll do. Prep the device and find me a pilot. We're going to fly that thing right down their throats." As the device was readied, Turner took the helm of the Retribution himself. With a skeleton crew manning the essential stations, he plunged the ship into the heart of the Lurian formation. Weapons fire raked the Retribution's shields as Turner jinked and weaved, drawing the enemy's attention. "EMP ship, you are clear to engage," Turner barked into the comm. But the reply that came back was not what he expected. "Negative, Retribution. We've been hit. The EMP is offline. I repeat, the EMP is offline." Turner's blood ran cold. Without the EMP, this was a suicide mission, but they had come too far to turn back now. "Understood," he said. "Retribution will take your place. We'll deliver the payload ourselves." He cut the comm before anyone could argue and turned the ship towards the looming bulk of the Lurian flagship. Alarms blared as the Retribution shuddered under the enemy's onslaught. Consoles sparked and smoked, and the lights flickered ominously. Turner's hand hovered over the EMP trigger. Just a little closer, he thought. Just a little. Suddenly the bridge was engulfed in a blinding white light. Turner threw up a hand to shield his eyes, even as a searing pain lanced through his skull. The last thing he heard before unconsciousness claimed him was the sound of his crew's screams. As the blinding light consumed him, Turner felt a wrenching sensation, like his very atoms were being ripped apart and reassembled. When his vision cleared, he found himself standing in an endless expanse of shimmering mist, an ethereal realm that seemed to exist outside the bounds of reality. Before him stood Ambassador Zoran, his form radiant with an otherworldly energy. The Aetheri's eyes gleamed with a somber intensity as he spoke. "Captain Turner, I have brought you here, to this pocket dimension, because there are truths you must know. Truths about the war, about the Aetheri, and about the weapon we possess." Turner's heart raced. his mind reeling from the sudden shift in reality. What weapon? What are you talking about? Zoran waved his hand, and the mists parted to reveal a small, pulsing orb of darkness. It seemed to absorb all light around it, a miniature black hole contained within a delicate lattice of alien technology. This is the Singularity Core, Zoran explained, his voice heavy with gravity. A device capable of generating a localized event horizon, a black hole of immense destructive power. With this, we could end the Lurian threat once and for all, but the cost would be unimaginable. Turner stared at the core, a mixture of awe and horror washing over him. What do you mean, the cost? If activated, the Singularity Core will consume everything in its path. The Lurian fleet, yes, but also the Galactic Council Station. Every ship, every being within its reach will be crushed, compacted, drawn into the Singularity's inescapable embrace. The weight of Zoran's words settled on Turner's shoulders like a physical burden. He saw the faces of his crew, of the countless innocents aboard the station. The price of victory, it seemed, would be paid in blood. I cannot make this choice for you, Captain, Zoran said softly, but know that the fate of the galaxy rests on your decision. Turner closed his eyes, his mind racing through 1,000 scenarios, 1,000 consequences. In the end, there was only one path he could take. Give me the core. Zoran nodded solemnly and placed the device in Turner's hands. As his fingers closed around the cool metal, the mists began to swirl and dissipate. In a blink, Turner found himself back on the bridge of the Retribution, alarms blaring and crew members shouting urgent reports. But the chaos seemed distant, muffled. In his hand, the Singularity Core pulsed with ominous promise. Helm, plot a retreat course, Turner ordered, his voice steady despite the turmoil in his heart. Comms, get me Hawkins on the station. As the crew scrambled to obey, Turner opened a channel to his trusted second. Hawkins' face appeared on the view screen, blood-streaked and exhausted but still fiercely determined. Hawkins, listen carefully. You need to evacuate the station. Get as many people to the escape pods as you can. We don't have much time. Hawkins's eyes widened, but he didn't question the order. With a sharp nod, he turned to rally his Marines, his voice echoing over the comm as he barked commands. Turner then turned his attention to the Lurian fleet, opening a hail to their flagship. When Admiral Zarek's scarred visage filled the screen, Turner felt a grim sense of inevitability. Admiral Zarek, this is your last chance. Surrender now or face annihilation. Zarek sneered, his eyes blazing with defiance. We will never surrender to you, human. We will fight to the last ship, the last Lurian. Turner sighed, his finger hovering over the release for the Singularity Core. So be it. With a final, decisive motion, he activated the device and launched it towards the heart of the Lurian armada. For a moment there was stillness, a breathless anticipation. Then, in a flash of blinding light, the black hole bloomed like a deadly flower. Ships, debris, even the very fabric of space itself began to spiral inwards, drawn inexorably towards the ravenous Singularity. The Lurian fleet, so proud and mighty mere moments before, crumpled like tin foil, their hulls crumpling and compressing as they vanished into the black hole's maw. But the hunger of the Singularity knew no bounds. It continued to expand, to devour, reaching out with tendrils of distorted spacetime towards the Council Station. Escape pods, tiny and fragile against the backdrop of destruction, raced away from the doomed structure, fleeing the approaching event horizon. On the Retribution's view screen, Turner watched the fruits of his choice unfold with a numb sense of inevitability. The weight of countless lives lost, of a future forever altered, settled upon his soul. As the station finally succumbed, vanishing into the Singularity's embrace, Turner couldn't tear his eyes away. The Retribution's engines screamed as they pushed the ship to the limits of its endurance, fighting against the inexorable pull of the black hole. With a final, wrenching effort, they broke free, riding the shockwaves to safety as behind them, the Singularity consumed itself, collapsing into nothingness and taking the Lurian threat with it. In the sudden silence that followed, Turner stood motionless on the bridge, the weight of his actions pressing down upon him like a physical force. The battle was won, but the cost. The remnants of the once proud Earth fleet drifted through the void, their hulls scorched and pitted by the ferocious battle they had just barely survived. On the bridge of the Retribution, Captain Turner slumped in his chair, his eyes haunted by the momentous decision he had been forced to make. The Singularity Corps had won them the battle, but at what cost? The deaths of countless innocents weighed heavily on his soul. He retreated to his quarters, ignoring the concerned looks from his bridge crew. He needed to be alone, to come to terms with what he had done. But there would be no respite for the weary captain. As the fleet limped towards the safety of Earth's orbit, the proximity alarms blared to life. An unknown ship had appeared on their scanners, hailing them with a signal that sent chills down Turner's spine. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a face that Turner had hoped never to see again. Admiral Zarak, his visage twisted with rage and hatred, glared at the human captain. "You thought you had won, didn't you?" Zarak snarled, his voice dripping with venom. "You thought your little trick with the black hole had finished us off. But you underestimated me, Turner. You underestimated the resolve of the Lurian Empire." Turner's blood ran cold as Zarak revealed the truth. His flagship, equipped with an experimental jump drive, had managed to tear itself free from the Singularity's grasp at the last possible moment. Now, with a small but fanatically loyal group of survivors, he had pursued the humans back to their homeworld, intent on revenge. Before Turner could even begin to formulate a response, Zarak's ship opened fire. Searing bolts of energy slammed into the already battered Earth ships, ripping through weakened shields and hulls like a knife through butter. The Retribution shuddered under the onslaught, alarms screaming as consoles exploded in showers of sparks. "Evasive maneuvers!" Turner roared, gripping the arms of his chair as the deck bucked beneath him. "Get us out of here!" But it was too late for some. Several Earth ships, their defenses already compromised by the previous battle, exploded in brilliant fireballs, their crews consumed by the merciless vacuum of space. In desperation, Turner gave the order to scatter. "All ships, make for the nearest friendly outpost. We need to draw Zarak away from Earth." The remnants of the fleet peeled away, each ship plotting a different course in an attempt to confuse and divide their pursuers. But Zarak was not so easily fooled. With a cruel smile, he split his own forces. One group broke off to pursue the fleeing humans, while Zarak himself turned his ship towards Earth. As the battered Earth fleet struggled to stay ahead of their relentless pursuers, a priority communication from Earth's Defense Command flashed across the Retribution screens. Zarak's ship had been detected entering Earth's atmosphere, on a direct course for the planet's most populous city. Millions of lives hung in the balance. Turner felt the weight of those lives pressing down on him. He had no choice. "Helm, break off our current course. Set a new heading for Earth. Maximum burn. We have to stop Zarak, no matter the cost." The Retribution shuddered as its engines roared to life, the inertial dampeners struggling to compensate as the ship hurtled back towards Earth. They burst through the atmosphere in a blaze of heat and light, the hull glowing cherry red from the friction. There, hovering over the sprawling metropolis like a malevolent god, was Zarak's ship. Its weapons were charging, the air crackling with the buildup of energy. In moments, it would unleash a devastating strike that would reduce the city to ashes. Turner's mind raced, desperately seeking a solution. And then, with a grim certainty, he knew what he had to do. "Ramming speed!" he ordered, his voice calm and steady despite the fear that gripped his heart. "We're going to take Zarak out, even if it means sacrificing ourselves." The crew, to their eternal credit, didn't hesitate. With grim determination, they set about implementing Turner's desperate plan. The Retribution, engines howling, hurled itself at Zarak's ship like a spear thrown by an enraged titan. The two vessels collided in a cataclysmic explosion, the force of the impact shattering hulls and sending both ships tumbling from the sky in a tangle of burning wreckage. On the Retribution's bridge, Turner picked himself up from the deck, blood streaming from a gash on his forehead. Through the cracked view screen, he saw Zarek's ship, engulfed in flames, plummeting towards the ground. It struck the earth with a force that shook the city to its foundations, erupting in a massive fireball that sent plumes of smoke and debris billowing into the sky. But there was no time to savor this small victory. The Retribution, mortally wounded by the collision, was mere seconds from suffering the same fate. The ground rushed up to meet them, the city's towering skyscrapers looming like the walls of a rapidly approaching tomb. Turner closed his eyes, bracing himself for the end. The ground rushed up at the Retribution, filling the view screen with a hellish landscape of shattered buildings and raging fires. Turner braced for impact, his hands gripping the armrests of his command chair. But the end did not come. Just before the ship slammed into the unforgiving earth, a blinding white light enveloped the bridge. Turner felt a wrenching sensation, as if his body was being yanked through a pinhole. His vision swam, his senses overwhelmed. When his sight cleared, he found himself once again in the ethereal realm of Ambassador Zoran. The Aetheri stood before him, his form shimmering with an otherworldly glow. "Captain Turner," Zoran said, his voice echoing in the strange space. "We have been monitoring your situation closely. We could not allow you and your crew to perish." Turner blinked, trying to process the sudden shift in reality. You saved us?" Zoran inclined his head. "We have used our technology to transport your ship to safety, mere moments before impact. Your crew is unharmed." Relief flooded through Turner, followed quickly by suspicion. Why? Why intervene now after all this time? The Aetheri's expression remained inscrutable. "We have our reasons, Captain. Reasons that now require your assistance." Turner frowned. "My assistance? In exchange for your lives, we ask that you undertake a mission for us. A mission deep into Lurian space, to recover an artifact of great importance." Turner's mind raced. A mission into enemy territory, now of all times? What kind of artifact? "An Aetheri device of immense power," Zoran replied. "One that could turn the tide of this war in your favor. With it, you could defeat the Lurians once and for all." It was a tempting offer, but Turner was no fool. "And what do you get out of this? Why not retrieve it yourselves?" Zoran spread his hands. "We have our limitations, Captain. Limitations that you and your team are uniquely suited to overcome. Succeed in this, and both our peoples will benefit." Turner weighed his options. The Earth fleet was in shambles. Zarek still a looming threat. If this artifact was as powerful as Zoran claimed. "I'll do it," he said at last, "but I'll need a ship, a team." "All will be provided," Zoran assured him. "A vessel equipped with our most advanced stealth technologies and your most trusted officers at your side." Turner nodded, his course set. "Then let's get started." The transition back to normal space was as jarring as before. Turner found himself on the bridge of a sleek, unfamiliar ship, his chosen team already at their stations. Hawkins, still bearing the scars of his last battle, nodded grimly at him from the tactical console. "Course laid in for Lurian space, sir," the helmsman reported. "Stealth systems engaged." "Take us out," Turner ordered. "Quiet and quick." As the ship slipped into the cold embrace of space, Turner couldn't shake a nagging unease. Zoran's words echoed in his mind. Limitations. Uniquely suited. There was more to this mission than the Aetheri was letting on. He was sure of it. But as the ship charted its silent course through enemy territory, dodging patrols and skirting minefields, Turner pushed his doubts aside. However murky the Aetheri's motives, one thing was crystal clear. The fate of humanity rested on this mission's success. Failure was not an option. Days stretched into weeks as they navigated the treacherous reaches of Lurian space, each close call fraying nerves a little more. But Turner's team was the best of the best, and the Aetheri ship's advanced systems kept them one step ahead of detection. Finally, after a particularly harrowing evasion of a Lurian battle group, The navigator's console pinged with a proximity alert. They had reached the Lurian homeworld. Sensors show a gap in their orbital defenses, Hawkins reported, his fingers flying over his console. If we approach on this vector, we should be able to slip through undetected. Turner leaned forward in his chair, eyes locked on the view screen. The Lurian homeworld loomed before them, a mottled orb of grays and reds. Somewhere down there was the key to humanity's salvation. "Take us in," he said. "Stealth measures at maximum." The ship knifed into the planet's atmosphere, skimming over jagged mountain ranges and vast rust-colored deserts. They set down in a remote canyon, the ship's camouflage systems blending it seamlessly into the rocky terrain. "All right, people, let's move," Turner said, checking the charge on his pulse rifle. "The sooner we find this artifact, the sooner we can get the hell out of here." But as they disembarked and began their search, a cold realization settled over them. The canyon was not as deserted as it seemed. In the distance, the unmistakable shapes of Lurian ground forces could be seen, vehicles kicking up plumes of red dust as they approached. And at their head, his figure unmistakable even from afar, was Admiral Zarek. He had survived, and he was here. Turner's grip tightened on his rifle. This mission had just gotten a whole lot more complicated. Turner clenched his jaw as he surveyed the ancient Lurian ruins stretching before them, a labyrinth of crumbling stone and twisting tunnels. Somewhere in this maze lay the artifact they sought, but finding it would be like searching for a needle in a cosmic haystack. "We have to move fast," Turner said, checking the charge on his pulse rifle. "Zarek's forces are closing in. Hawkins, take Nguyen and Sato and create a diversion. Draw their attention away from us." Hawkins nodded grimly. "We'll give 'em hell, sir." As Hawkins and his team melted into the shadows, Turner led the rest of the group deeper into the ruins. They moved cautiously, scanning for traps and deciphering the cryptic etheri glyphs that pointed the way forward. "This symbol here," Lieutenant Jira said, tracing a series of interlocking circles. "I think it's a clue to the artifact's location." Turner frowned at the ancient script, his mind racing. Jira was right. The glyphs formed a map, a trail that wound ever deeper into the planet's core. They pressed on, navigating treacherous chasms and solving mind-bending puzzles left by the etheri. With each challenge overcome, they drew closer to their goal. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the gloom ahead. Turner raised his rifle, but the stranger held up a hand in a gesture of peace. "I am Xerxes," the alien said, his voice echoing with centuries of wisdom. "And you are making a grave mistake." Turner kept his rifle trained on Xerxes. "What do you mean?" "The artifact you seek, it is not a weapon but a key to a power beyond your understanding. It was hidden for a reason." As Xerxes spoke, a chilling realization dawned on Turner. The artifact wasn't just some advanced technology. It was something far more profound and terrifying. "This power," Turner said slowly. "What would happen if it fell into the wrong hands?" Xerxes fixed him with a haunted stare. "It would mean the end of everything. No one race can be trusted with such a thing. It must be destroyed." Turner hesitated, torn between his mission and the gnawing sense that Xerxes was right. But before he could decide, the sound of gunfire and shouting echoed from the tunnels behind them. Zarek had found them. Turner and his team took cover as Lurian soldiers poured into the chamber, weapons blazing. They fought back with grim determination, but they were badly outnumbered. In the chaos, Turner saw Xerxes making a desperate lunge for the artifact, which glowed with an eerie light on a nearby pedestal. But a Lurian bullet found the ancient alien first, and he crumpled to the ground. Just as all seemed lost, a battle cry rang out. Hawkins and his team, battered but unbowed, charged into the fray, guns spitting fire. With their last ounce of strength, the humans pushed towards the artifact chamber. But when they got there, they found only devastation. Xerxes lay in a pool of his own blood, the life fading from his eyes, and the artifact was gone. "Zarek," Xerxes whispered with his final breath. "He has taken it, and with it, the power to unmake worlds. Turner felt a cold dread settle in his gut. Their mission had failed. And now, the fate of the galaxy hung by a thread. Zarek had the artifact, and with it, the means to conquer and destroy on an unimaginable scale. The stakes had never been higher. Turner and his battered team steeled themselves for a final, desperate confrontation with their most dangerous enemy yet. The fate of humanity, and the universe itself, would be decided in the battles to come. Turner's heart pounded as he raced through the Lurian shuttle's corridors, his team close on his heels. They had to catch Zarek before he could unleash the artifact's full power. The tracking system pinged, locking onto the warlord's ship. Turner slid into the pilot's seat, his hands flying over the controls. "Hang on," he growled, punching the thrusters. The shuttle leapt forward, engines screaming as they hurtled through the void. As they neared their destination, a gasp rippled through the crew. The planet loomed before them, a seething mass of energy. Tendrils of power lashed the void, crackling and pulsing with malevolent force. "He's already tapping into it," Hawkins breathed, his face pale. "We have to stop him." Turner nodded grimly, angling the shuttle towards the planet's surface. They hit the atmosphere hard, the hull shuddering as they plunged through roiling clouds of energy. The shuttle touched down with a bone-jarring thud. The hatch hissed open, revealing a hellish landscape. The ground was cracked and blackened, seething with unnatural life. Twisted creatures skittered and howled, their forms warped by the artifact's power. "Move out," Turner ordered, his rifle snapping up. "We have to reach that fortress." They pushed forward, picking their way through the nightmare terrain. At every turn, monstrous beasts assailed them, their claws and fangs fueled by the artifact's dark energy. Turner and his team fought back with grim determination, their weapons blazing. But Zarek's elite guard was never far behind, harrying their every step. These once human soldiers had been twisted by the artifact, imbued with unnatural speed and strength. They attacked with relentless fury, their eyes glowing with madness. Turner gritted his teeth, his rifle bucking in his hands as he cut down another mutated guardian. They were getting close now, the fortress looming ahead like a cancerous growth on the tortured landscape. They fought their way to the gates, a final desperate push. The doors shuddered open, revealing a cavernous hall pulsing with dark energy, and there, at its heart, stood Zarak. But it was Zarak, as they had never seen him. The warlord had been transformed, his body swollen and distorted by the artifact's power. His eyes blazed with insane light, his voice a guttural roar. "Welcome, Captain Turner," he bellowed, his voice shaking the very walls. "You're just in time to witness the dawn of a new era, an era where I rule supreme." Turner stepped forward, his weapon leveled at the abomination that had once been a man. "It's over, Zarek. You've lost." The warlord laughed, a sound that chilled the blood. "Lost? You blind fool. I've only just begun. With this power, I am unstoppable. Join me, and together we will reshape the galaxy." Turner's reply was a bolt of plasma to Zarek's chest, but the shot sizzled harmlessly against an energy field, dissipating into nothingness. Zarek's grin widened. So be it. He raised his hands, and the citadel came alive. The very floors and walls shifted and churned, lashing out at the humans with murderous intent. Turner and his team fought back, their weapons flashing, but it was like fighting the tide. One by one, Turner's comrades fell, crushed by the living fortress or cut down by Zarek's power. Turner himself was flung aside, his rifle clattering away across the heaving floor. Despair clawed at him as he struggled to rise. They couldn't win this. Zarek was too strong, his power too vast. It was hopeless. And then, in a flash of clarity, he remembered Xerxes' words. The artifact was a key, a conduit to the very fabric of reality. If he could just tap into that power. Turner closed his eyes, reaching out with his mind. He felt the artifact's energy, a raging torrent of power. He sensed its presence, vast and ancient and terrible. And to his shock, it sensed him in return. There was a connection, a thread of understanding. Turner seized it, pouring every ounce of his will into the link. He felt the artifact's power surge through him, raw and unfettered. With a roar of defiance, Turner rose to his feet. He turned to face Zarek, the artifact's energy crackling around him. The warlord's eyes widened in sudden fear. "No," Zarek whispered. "That's impossible." Turner smiled grimly. Not impossible, inevitable. He unleashed the artifact's power in a cataclysmic blast. Zarek screamed as the energy tore through him, shredding his mutated form. The citadel shuddered and cracked, the walls crumbling, the floors buckling. In a final blinding explosion, Zarek was obliterated. The fortress collapsed in on itself, burying the warlord's remains under tons of rubble. Turner staggered from the ruins, clutching the now dormant artifact. His surviving comrades limped after him, their faces haunted by the horrors they had witnessed. As they clambered aboard their battered shuttle, Turner couldn't shake a sense of unease. They had won, yes, but at what cost? And what new threats might arise from the ashes of this war? He glanced down at the artifact, its surface now dull and lifeless. Whatever the future held, he knew this ancient device would play a role. For good or ill, its power was now a part of their destiny. The shuttle lifted off, rising above the ruined planet. Turner stared out into the void of space, his gaze unfocused, his thoughts dark. The war was over, but somehow he knew their struggles were just beginning. The Retribution sliced through the void, its battle-scarred hull a testament to the trials it had endured. On the bridge, Captain Turner stood motionless, his gaze fixed on the view screen as Earth grew from a distant speck to a vibrant blue-green orb. As they entered the atmosphere, a chorus of cheers erupted from the crew. They had done the impossible, defeating the Lurians and securing the artifact. They were heroes. But the celebrations were short-lived. As soon as they touched down, Turner was whisked away to a debriefing with Earth's top brass. In a secure bunker deep beneath the surface, he found himself face-to-face with grim-faced generals and stone-faced politicians. "Captain Turner," the defense secretary began, her voice tight with tension, "your actions have altered the course of human history. The artifact you recovered, it's like nothing we've ever seen." Turner nodded, the weight of the artifact heavy in his pocket. "It's more than just a weapon," he said. "It's alive in a way, and it's chosen me." The room fell silent, the implications of Turner's words sinking in. Finally, the president spoke. "This is an opportunity, Captain. With this artifact, we can ensure Earth's safety for generations. You must unlock its secrets." Turner left the meeting with a new mission. With the help of Etheri scientists, he threw himself into studying the artifact. Day and night, he pored over ancient texts and ran countless simulations, trying to understand the artifact's true nature. But the more he learned, the more uneasy he became. The artifact began to speak to him, whispering secrets of a long-dead civilization in his dreams. It showed him visions of unimaginable power and the destruction it could unleash. "I am the last remnant of the Protheans," the artifact whispered. "My creators were destroyed by their own arrogance. I was made to prevent such a fate from befalling another race. But to fulfill my purpose, I need a champion." Turner awoke in a cold sweat, the artifact's words echoing in his mind. He knew he was being tested, evaluated for a role he didn't fully understand. His unease turned to dread when the news arrived. The artifact had been stolen from the secure facility where it was being studied. Security feeds showed a strike team bearing the insignia of a rogue Lurian faction, led by a massive warrior wielding a crackling energy blade. "Kravox," the intelligence officer said, pulling up a holo of the warlord. "A fanatic. He's rallying the remnants of the Lurian military to his cause. They believe the artifact is their key to reviving the Empire." Turner clenched his fists, anger and fear warring within him. He knew what he had to do. "I'm going after him," he said. "Assemble a team. We're going to get that artifact back." Within hours, Turner was back on the Retribution, a hand-picked team of Earth's deadliest warriors at his side. They blasted off in pursuit of Kravox, following the trail of destruction he left in his wake. The chase led them to the edge of known space, to a region called the Shadowlands. As they crossed the boundary, reality itself seemed to warp and twist. Sensors went haywire, and strange, distorted creatures could be glimpsed flitting through the void. At the heart of this nightmare realm, they found Kravox's stronghold, a twisted citadel pulsing with the artifact's dark energy. Around it, a horde of abominations stood ready, nightmarish fusions of Lurian and Shadow. Turner gripped the arms of his chair as the retribution shuddered under a barrage of unearthly weapons fire. Kravox's voice crackled over the comms, dripping with malice. "You're too late, human," he snarled. "With this power, I will restore the Lurian Empire to its former glory. Your feeble species will be the first to kneel before us." Turner's eyes narrowed. "Not on my watch," he growled. "All hands, battle stations. We're going in." The retribution plunged towards the citadel, guns blazing, as Turner's team prepared for the fight of their lives. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and failure was not an option. As Turner and his team fought their way into the heart of Kravox's stronghold, the true horror of their enemy's power became clear. The halls swarmed with nightmarish cyborg soldiers, their Lurian flesh melded with twisted metal and pulsing circuitry. They moved with unnatural speed and precision, their mechanical limbs granting them inhuman strength and resilience. Turner's men fought with desperate courage, their weapons blazing as they cut down one abomination after another. But for every cyborg that fell, two more seemed to take its place. The air rang with the clash of metal on metal, the sizzle of energy weapons, and the screams of the wounded and dying. "Keep pushing forward," Turner shouted over the din, his own rifle spitting plasma bolts. "We have to reach Kravox." Inch by bloody inch, they battled their way deeper into the stronghold, leaving a trail of shattered cyborgs in their wake. But the cost was high. Turner watched in helpless rage as his men fell one by one, ripped apart by the relentless onslaught of the biomechanical horrors. By the time they reached the central chamber, only a handful of Turner's team remained. They burst through the doors, weapons ready, only to stumble to a halt in shock. Kravox loomed before them, a towering monstrosity of flesh and metal. The artifact was embedded in his chest, pulsing with malevolent energy. He had transcended his Lurian form, becoming something far more terrible, a god of war and destruction. "Welcome, Captain Turner," Kravox boomed, his voice a mechanical roar. "You're just in time to witness the dawn of a new age, an age of Lurian supremacy." With a casual wave of his hand, Kravox sent out a pulse of energy that slammed into Turner's team. Their weapons sparked and died, rendered useless by the artifact's power. They crumpled to their knees, paralyzed by the crushing force of Kravox's will. "Did you really think you could stop me?" Kravox laughed. "With this power, I am invincible. I will crush your pathetic species beneath my heel and rule the galaxy unopposed." As Kravox gloated, Turner felt a sudden surge of energy from the dormant artifact fragment that still resided within him, a remnant of his previous encounter. It resonated with the main artifact in Kravox's chest, creating a connection, a conduit of power. Acting on instinct, Turner reached out with his mind, seizing that connection. He poured all his willpower, all his determination into the link, and to his amazement, he felt the artifact's power begin to flow into him. Kravox faltered, sensing the shift. "What are you doing?" he bellowed, his eyes widening in sudden fear. Turner didn't answer. He was locked in a mental struggle with Kravox, a battle of wills fought on a psychic plane. The air around them crackled with energy as they grappled for control of the artifact. Bolts of pure force lashed out, scorching the walls and floor. Turner's team, freed from Kravox's paralysis, seized their chance. They charged forward, firing their reactivated weapons at the power core that pulsed at the heart of the chamber. The core exploded in a blinding flash, setting off a chain reaction that rocked the stronghold to its foundations. Alarms blared and the walls began to shake and crumble. In the chaos, Turner made his final move. With a monumental effort of will, he wrenched the artifact free from Kravox's chest. The warlord howled in agony and rage, his power broken. But even in defeat, Kravox was deadly. With his last breath, he activated the stronghold's self-destruct, intent on taking his enemies with him into oblivion. Turner, the artifact glowing in his hands, knew there was no time to escape. He made a split-second decision. Channeling the artifact's power, he enveloped his team in a cocoon of energy and teleported them out of the stronghold, back to the safety of their waiting ship. But Turner himself remained behind. Someone had to contain the explosion, to prevent it from devastating the surrounding star systems. And with the artifact's power at his command, he was the only one who could do it. As his team rematerialized on the bridge of their ship, they could only watch in horror as Kravox's stronghold erupted in a cataclysmic blast. A shockwave of pure energy radiated outward, engulfing the Shadowlands, collapsing the twisted fabric of that nightmare realm in on itself. And at the heart of that maelstrom, a single figure blazed like a supernova. Captain Turner, the artifact blazing in his grasp, a man transformed into a force of nature by the power he wielded. Then, in a blinding flash, he was gone, consumed by the energies he had unleashed. The Shadowlands imploded, folding in on themselves until nothing remained but a yawning void in space. On the bridge of the ship, Turner's crew stared in stunned disbelief at the view screen, hardly able to process the enormity of what had just happened. Their leader, the man who had brought them through so much, was gone, sacrificed to save them all. Hawkins stood in silence on the bridge of the Retribution, his heart heavy with grief. Around him, the ship's crew went about their duties with a somber efficiency, the usual chatter and laughter replaced by a mournful hush. The loss of Captain Turner hung over them all like a suffocating shroud. With a sigh, Hawkins turned to his first officer. "Set a course for Earth," he ordered, his voice raw. "We have a report to make." The journey home was a blur of sorrow and exhaustion. When they finally docked at the orbital station high above the blue-green globe, Hawkins felt as if he had aged a decade. He and his team disembarked, the artifact secured in a heavily shielded containment unit. A phalanx of armed guards escorted them to a top-secret research facility buried deep beneath the Earth's surface. For weeks, the brightest minds of humanity pored over the artifact, trying to unravel its secrets. But even as they made slow, painstaking progress, strange rumors began to circulate. Whispers of sightings of a man who looked like Turner, appearing on far-flung planets and outposts. At first, Hawkins dismissed these rumors as the wishful thinking of a grieving crew. But as the reports continued to pour in, he couldn't ignore them any longer. With a growing sense of unease, he went to his superiors with a request for a covert mission to investigate these sightings. Permission was granted, and Hawkins wasted no time in assembling his team. They set out into the vast expanse of space, chasing down every lead and rumor. On a seedy space station, they spoke to a bartender who claimed to have seen Turner mere days before. In the ruins of an ancient temple, they found scorch marks that could only have been made by the artifact's energy. But always, they seemed to be one step behind. Wherever Turner had been, he was long gone by the time they arrived. As they pressed on, the trail grew stranger. They heard tales of barren worlds suddenly bursting with life, of dying species miraculously revived. And always the same story, a mysterious figure wielding unimaginable power, appearing just before the change. Their search led them to a remote, uncharted planet on the very fringes of known space. As they approached, their sensors detected a massive energy signature, unlike anything they had ever seen. They landed near the source of the signal and set out on foot, weapons at the ready. They trekked through dense, primal forests and scaled jagged mountain peaks until they finally reached a clearing at the heart of the energy storm. There, standing amidst a swirling vortex of light and power, was Captain Turner. But he was changed. His eyes blazed with cosmic fire, his form barely containing the immense energy that surged through him. He turned to face his old crew, a sad smile on his lips. "I knew you would find me," he said, his voice echoing with 1,000 whispers. Hawkins stepped forward, his heart racing. Sir, what happened to you? We thought you were dead. Turner shook his head. Not dead. Transformed. When I used the artifact's power to contain the explosion, I finally understood its true purpose. It showed me the entirety of existence, and I saw how I could use its power to heal, to guide, to elevate. He spread his arms, and the vortex around him pulsed and expanded. I have become something more, Hawkins. I am a guardian now, a shepherd for all life. But then his expression darkened. But my actions have drawn attention. Ancient forces are stirring, beings that see what I'm doing as a threat to their concept of balance. They are coming for me, Hawkins, and if they succeed in stopping me, all that I've tried to build will be undone. He fixed Hawkins with a piercing stare, his eyes pleading. I need your help, old friend. Yours and the crew's. We must stand together against the coming storm, or all will be lost. Hawkins stared at his former captain, a man he had thought lost forever, now transformed into something beyond his understanding. He looked to his team, saw the determination in their eyes, and made his decision. We're with you, sir, he said, snapping a crisp salute. Until the end. Turner smiled, and the very universe seemed to shimmer in response. Then let us begin. In a heartbeat, Hawkins' expression shifted from awe to grim determination. He stepped forward, his voice urgent. Turner, you have to come back with us. If these entities are as powerful as you say, you can't face them alone. You need Earth. You need our allies. Turner's eyes, glowing with the artifact's power, met Hawkins. A flicker of hesitation crossed his features. I can't ask humanity to fight this war, Hawkins. The risk is too great. Damn the risk, Hawkins shot back. This is our fight too. Whatever happens, we face it together. For a long moment, Turner was silent. Then slowly, he nodded. You're right. We do this together. But as they prepared for the journey back, the first signs of the coming storm made themselves known. The ship shuddered as if gripped by an unseen hand, the metal groaning under the strain. The lights flickered, consoles sparking. On the monitors, ghostly figures appeared, their forms distorted and their voices a chilling whisper in long dead tongues. Reality itself seemed to warp and twist, the laws of physics bending to breaking point. Hawkins gripped the armrests of his chair as another shudder rocked the ship. Report! He barked. Systems are failing across the board, sir, the helmsman replied, his fingers flying over the controls. Navigation, weapons, life support, everything's going haywire. Hawkins gritted his teeth. Turner, we need you. Turner, his eyes closed in concentration, held out a hand. The artifact in his palm pulsed with energy, and slowly, the ship steadied. The lights stopped flickering, and the ghostly apparitions faded from the screens. I can hold it together, Turner said, his voice strained. But I don't know for how long. We need to get back to Earth fast. The journey back was a nightmare of twisting corridors and failing systems. The ship barely held together by Turner's will and the crew's desperate efforts. But finally, battered and bruised, they burst into Earth's orbit. The sight that greeted them was one of utter devastation. The planet was shrouded in an unearthly haze, the continents obscured by swirling patterns of unnatural colors. Massive storms raged across the surface, lightning streaking between boiling clouds. As they descended through the atmosphere, the true extent of the damage became clear. Cities lay in ruins, once proud skyscrapers reduced to rubble. Strange, twisted creatures stalked through the wreckage, their forms a nightmarish blend of flesh and something wholly otherworldly. Governments had collapsed, armies scattered. Panic and chaos reigned supreme as the cosmic entity's influence seeped into every corner of the planet. Hawkins watched the screens in horror, his knuckles white on the armrests. Dear God, he whispered, we're too late. But Turner shook his head. No, we can still fight this. We have to. They set the ship down in the ruins of New York, the once mighty city now a shell of its former self. As they stepped out onto the cracked pavement, a ragtag group of survivors emerged from the rubble. Soldiers, scientists, ordinary people, all united in their determination to survive. Turner and Hawkins rallied them, their words kindling a spark of hope in the darkness. They reached out to their allies across the stars, calling for aid, and aid came. From the farthest reaches of the galaxy, ships poured into Earth's orbit. Sleek HFY warships, bristling with advanced weaponry. Massive Krellian battle cruisers, their hulls scarred from 100 wars. Nimble Zephyri fighters, darting through the void like silver fish. And at the heart of this armada, the pride of Earth's fleet, the EDS Retribution, reborn and retrofitted with technology from a dozen worlds. On the surface, armies gathered. Humans stood shoulder to shoulder with HFY shock troopers, Krellian war machines, Zephyri skirmishers. Weapons were distributed, plasma rifles, graviton hammers, singularity grenades, forged in the fires of 100 worlds' worth of knowledge. And at the center of it all stood Turner, the artifact glowing like a star in his hands. With its power, he fortified their minds, sharpened their reflexes, enabled them to tap into reserves of strength they never knew they had. The stage was set. The pieces were in place. And as the cosmic entities descended on the galaxy, the war for the fate of all creation began. Across 1,000 worlds, battles raged. In the skies above Earth, vast armadas clashed, the void lit by the fire of their weapons. HFY dreadnoughts dueled with entities that dwarfed them in size, their hulls warping and twisting under the assault of eldritch energies. Krellian battle cruisers unleashed storms of missiles, each one tipped with warheads that tore holes in the fabric of reality itself. On the ground, armies charged across blasted wastelands, their battle cries mixing with the unearthly shrieks of the entity's minions. HFY shock troopers, their armor glowing with psionic energy, clashed with nightmarish abominations in hand-to-hand combat. Krellian war machines stomped across the battlefield, their cannons roaring as they reduced entire swathes of the enemy to ash. And in the realms beyond the physical, Turner and the greatest psychic minds of the allied races waged a war of wills against the entities themselves. They battled in mindscapes of pure thought, wielding weapons forged from memory and emotion, fighting back the tide of madness that threatened to engulf all of reality. The war raged for an eternity, or perhaps only a heartbeat. Time lost all meaning in the chaos of the battle. Worlds burned, stars died, and the very foundations of the universe trembled. But through it all, against odds beyond reckoning, the Allies held the line. They fought with a courage that defied understanding, a unity that transcended species and creed. In the face of annihilation, they stood together, bound by ties stronger than steel. Soldiers from 100 worlds bled together on the battlefields, fought and died side by side. In the halls of ruined cities, medics of every race tended to the wounded, HFY technology working hand in hand with human medicine to snatch life from the jaws of death. And in the quiet moments between the fighting, old bonds were reforged and new ones forged. HFY and human, Krellian and Zephyri, soldier and civilian, the lines blurred until only one identity remained: survivor, ally, friend. It was these bonds, these ties of loyalty and sacrifice, that turned the tide against the darkness. The entities, in all their ancient power, had never faced anything like it. They had battled civilizations before, ground entire species to dust beneath their might. But they had never fought a foe like this. Never before had they faced an enemy that would gladly lay down their lives for each other, that would stand against the abyss not for glory or gain, but because it was right. In the face of such defiance, even the gods began to falter. The very fabric of reality rippled and warped as Turner clashed with the cosmic entity in the psychic realm. The landscape shifted chaotically around them, cycling through vistas of tranquility and hellish, impossible geometries. Turner, a blazing avatar of pure energy empowered by the artifact, hurled searing bolts of psychic lightning at his colossal, serpentine foe. The entity retaliated, lashing out with waves of soul-rending shadow that threatened to engulf Turner's mind. As they grappled in this surreal mindscape, Turner probed the ancient being's consciousness, seeking understanding. A barrage of images and sensations flooded his thoughts, visions of the entity's incomprehensibly long existence, of countless cycles of cosmic creation and destruction. Turner reeled under the weight of the entity's vast, weary perspective, a viewpoint so immense that mortal lives seemed as insignificant as motes of dust. In that moment of profound connection, Turner grasped a fundamental truth. The entity was not acting out of malice or evil. Such concepts were utterly foreign to its alien psyche. Rather, from its detached, cosmically scaled viewpoint, the struggles and triumphs of mortal beings were simply beneath notice, irrelevant fluctuations in the grand, eternal cycle of existence. Armed with this revelation, Turner ceased his psychic assault. Instead, he began to communicate with the entity on a deeper level, opening his mind to share the essence of mortal existence. He poured forth a stream of experiences and emotions, the love and bonds between comrades in arms, the driving curiosity to explore and understand, the soaring joy of discovery, and the aching sorrow of loss. He laid bare the paradox of mortal life, at once fleeting and fragile, yet endlessly precious in its brevity. And against all odds, the entity began to understand. Across the vast gulf of eons and incomprehensible difference, a connection took root. The entity saw, as if for the first time, the inherent value and beauty in the mortal experience. It came to appreciate the courage and resilience of ephemeral beings who, knowing their time was short, nonetheless strove to leave their mark upon the universe. A sense of profound acknowledgement flowed from the entity to Turner. It would halt its assault on the mortal plane, withdrawing its incomprehensible forces and leaving the myriad races of the galaxy to forge their own destiny. Turner felt the entity's presence recede from his mind, the psychic realm dissolving around him. He blinked, finding himself returned to the physical world, the artifact's power still thrumming through his veins. Around him, the Allied fleet's desperate battle against the cosmic entities had ceased, the invaders simply winking out of existence as if they had never been. A ragged cheer rose from the surviving ships as the realization of their victory spread. The battle was won, the existential threat to all mortal life averted. But as Turner looked out upon the scarred and battered remnants of the once proud armada, he knew their true work was just beginning. The galaxy had been forever altered by this cataclysmic conflict. Old powers brought low and long-standing certainties overturned. It would fall to Turner and the alliance he had helped forge to rebuild from the ashes, to chart a new course for the future. With the artifact's power at his command and the hard-won wisdom of this ordeal seared into his soul, Turner stood ready to face the challenges ahead. "This is only the beginning," he told Hawkins over the comm, his voice heavy with mingled exhaustion and determination. "We've bought the galaxy a new dawn, but it's up to us to ensure it doesn't squander this chance." Hawkins' voice crackled back, shot through with static from damaged comm systems but no less resolute. "We're with you, sir, to the end." Turner nodded, his gaze fixed on the stars beyond the view screen, on the infinite possibilities of a universe reborn. The artifact thrummed in his hand, a reminder of the power and responsibility he now bore. A new era had dawned, and he would lead the way into its uncharted depths. In the days that followed the galaxy's salvation, Turner found himself at the center of a whirlwind of activity. From every corner of the cosmos, representatives of the allied races flocked to Earth, eager to pay their respects to the man who had led them to victory. They came bearing gifts and accolades, hailing Turner as a savior, a living legend. But Turner himself seemed uncomfortable with the attention. In private moments with his closest friends, he confessed his unease. "This isn't what we fought for," he said, his voice heavy with weariness. "We didn't do this for glory or power. We did it so that every being in the galaxy could have a chance at a better future." It was this conviction that drove Turner's actions in the weeks and months that followed. When the talks began to form a new galactic government, a federation of worlds united by their shared trauma and their hope for peace, Turner was conspicuously absent from the negotiating table. Many assumed he would take a leading role in shaping this new order, but Turner had other plans. "The future belongs to all of us," he told Hawkins, his eyes fixed on the stars visible through the viewport of his quarters. "Not just to me or to any one individual. If this federation is going to work, it needs to be built on the will of the many, not the authority of the few." Instead of the halls of power, Turner could be found in the quieter corners of the Allied worlds, meeting with scholars, philosophers, and mystics. He was searching for answers, trying to understand the true nature of the artifact that had both saved and imperiled the galaxy. What he learned troubled him deeply. The artifact, for all the good it had done, was a source of unfathomable power. And power, as history had shown time and again, was a corrupting force. As long as the artifact existed, Turner realized, it would be a target for those seeking to bend the galaxy to their will. The solution, when it came to him, was as daring as it was desperate. The artifact couldn't be destroyed. Turner knew that much. Its power was too vast, too fundamental to the fabric of the universe itself. But perhaps it could be hidden, its power scattered to the far reaches of the galaxy, divided into fragments that could never be reunited except in the gravest of circumstances. He shared his plan with his most trusted confidants, Hawkins, Jira, and a handful of others who had been with him since the beginning. Together, they refined the details, debating long into the night. They would create a network of hidden sanctuaries, each housing a small piece of the artifact's power. These sanctuaries would be scattered across the galaxy, in locations known only to a select few, and they would be guarded not by armies or fleets, but by individuals chosen for their strength of character, their unwavering loyalty to the ideals of the Federation. Turner himself would oversee the creation of each sanctuary, using the artifact's power to shape them and imbue them with its essence. It would be a monumental undertaking, one that would require him to journey to the farthest reaches of known space. But even this was not the most daunting part of the plan. For the network to be truly secure, for the artifact to be forever beyond the reach of those who would misuse it, one final step was necessary. The pieces of the artifact, scattered though they were, could still be reunited by someone with the knowledge and power to do so. To prevent this, Turner proposed a radical solution. Using the artifact's power, he would scatter his own essence, his very consciousness, across the network. He would become the final safeguard, the living key without which the artifact could never be made whole again. It was a sacrifice beyond measure, one that would mean the end of Turner's life as he knew it. But for the sake of the galaxy, for the chance of a future free from the specter of the artifact's power, he was willing to make it. The preparations were made in secret, known only to Turner's inner circle. He said his goodbyes in private, sharing quiet moments with those who had fought beside him, those who had become more than comrades. They were his family. And then, without fanfare or ceremony, Turner left Earth behind. With the artifact in hand, he set out into the void, ready to begin his final mission. The first sanctuary was created on a remote world in the heart of the Orion Nebula, a place of stunning beauty and primal power. Turner stood on a cliff overlooking a vast, shimmering lake, the artifact pulsing in his hands. He reached out with his mind, shaping the very fabric of reality. A ripple spread across the surface of the lake, and then a small island rose from its center, a perfect circle of black stone. On this island, Turner created a simple structure, a shrine of sorts, its walls etched with symbols that glowed with an inner light. Into this shrine, he placed a fragment of the artifact, a shard of its power. The air thrummed with energy as he did so, and for a moment, the entire island was bathed in a blinding radiance. When the light faded, Turner turned to the figure standing beside him. She was a Zephyri, one of the enigmatic beings who had fought alongside humanity in the war. Her name was Lyra, and her eyes shone with a fierce, unwavering loyalty. "This place is yours now," Turner told her, his voice soft but intense. You are its guardian, its protector. Let no one enter here unless the need is dire and the intention pure." Lyra bowed her head, accepting the charge. Turner placed his hand on her shoulder, and a pulse of energy passed between them, a psychic bond, tying her to the sanctuary and its precious contents. And so it went, on world after world, in the icy caverns of a comet, forever drifting through the void. In the heart of a dying star, its final moments of brilliance captured and held in stasis. In the depths of a sentient ocean, its waters teeming with alien life. Turner created each sanctuary with meticulous care, shaping them with the artifact's power and his own indomitable will. And for each, he chose a guardian, an individual of exceptional courage and principle, binding them to their sacred duty with unbreakable oaths. The final sanctuary was unlike the others. It was not a place, but a state of being. In a remote corner of the galaxy, far from any star or planet, Turner created a field of pure energy, a matrix of swirling light and power. It was here that he would make his final stand. With the artifact in hand, he stepped into the center of the maelstrom. He could feel its power coursing through him, filling him with a sense of purpose and clarity like he had never known. He raised the artifact high, and it pulsed with a blinding intensity. Turner felt his consciousness expand, his very essence unspooling like a thread. In a moment of transcendent clarity, he saw the entire network he had created, the sanctuaries glimmering like jewels in the vast expanse of the cosmos. And then, with a final surge of power, he let go. His physical form dissolved, becoming one with the energy matrix. His consciousness, his very being, scattered across the galaxy, a piece of him residing in each sanctuary. Turner, the man, was gone, but his legacy, his sacrifice, would endure. He had become something more, a guardian spirit watching over the galaxy he had given everything to protect. In the years that followed, the Federation flourished. Guided by the principles of cooperation and mutual respect that Turner had embodied, it grew into a beacon of hope and unity, a shining example of what the galaxy could be when its inhabitants worked together. The sanctuaries, and the secret they held, passed into legend. The Guardians kept their watch, their vigil eternal. And though the artifact itself faded from memory, its power hidden and scattered, its influence could still be felt. In moments of crisis, when all seemed lost, people would sometimes speak of a presence, a guiding hand that seemed to steer them towards the light. Starship captains, lost in the void, would tell of a voice that led them home. Diplomats, locked in bitter negotiations, would speak of a sudden clarity, a sense of purpose that allowed them to find common ground. And always in these moments, there would be whispers of a name, a legend that had never quite faded. Turner, the savior, the guardian, the man who had given everything for the sake of the galaxy. His story became the stuff of myth, passed down from generation to generation, and in the telling, it grew, taking on the power of a parable, a lesson in the values of sacrifice, unity, and hope. In this way, Turner's legacy lived on, even as the man himself had passed into the realm of legend. His spirit, his essence, remained, a guiding light for a galaxy that had been forever changed by his courage and his vision. And as the Federation grew and prospered, as new worlds were discovered and new frontiers explored, there was always a sense that Turner was there, watching over them, guiding them towards a future brighter than any they had dared to imagine. A future where the stars themselves seemed to sing with the promise of hope and new beginnings. Centuries passed, and under the Federation's guidance, the galaxy flourished. Worlds once ravaged by war were rebuilt, their scars fading into memory. Trade routes hummed with activity, a web of prosperity binding the stars together. In the halls of power, representatives from 100 races worked side by side, their differences a source of strength rather than strife. But on the fringes of known space, a shadow stirred. The first reports were dismissed as wild rumors, tall tales spun by spacers who'd spent too long in the void, stories of entire colonies gone dark, of strange, half-mechanical creatures stalking the ruins. But as more and more worlds fell silent, the truth could no longer be ignored. They called themselves the Necroids, and their goal was nothing less than the assimilation of all life. They swept across the outer colonies like a plague, their biomechanical ships darkening the skies. Where they landed, all resistance was crushed, the defenders overwhelmed by a nightmarish fusion of machine and living tissue. The Federation marshaled its forces, confident in its strength. They had faced threats before and prevailed. But this was an enemy unlike any they had known. The Necroids adapted to every strategy, every weapon, evolving and improving with each engagement. Conventional weapons seemed useless against their regenerating hybrid forms. In battle after battle, the Federation found itself outmatched. Fleets were lost, armies scattered, worlds that had known peace for generations burned. It seemed that nothing could stop the Necroids' relentless advance. In desperation, the Federation's leaders turned to the ancient legends, the stories of Turner and the artifact that had saved the galaxy so long ago. If there was power that could stop the Necroids, it would be found there. Teams of brave adventurers were dispatched to the far corners of the galaxy to seek out the hidden sanctuaries where Turner's power had been scattered. Among them was Kara, a young tactician with a gift for the impossible. But they were not the only ones searching. The Necroids, their collective mind spanning worlds, had learned of the artifact. They saw it as the key to their ultimate victory. With its power, they could assimilate not just the galaxy, but the universe itself. The race was on, with the fate of every living thing hanging in the balance. Kara and her team fought their way through forgotten worlds and ancient ruins, always one step ahead of the Necroids. They faced dangers at every turn. Deadly predators, ancient traps, the very environments turned hostile. On a jungle world, they fought through clouds of venomous insects to reach a ruined temple. In the frozen caverns of an ice moon, they outwitted a labyrinthine security system left by a long-dead race. On a planet racked by eternal storms, they braved hurricane-force winds to reach a sanctuary hidden in the eye of the tempest. Each piece of the artifact they reclaimed was a hard-won victory, paid for in blood and sacrifice, but they pushed on, driven by the knowledge that failure was not an option. After months of harrowing missions and narrow escapes, they finally had it, the last piece of the artifact. With trembling hands, Kara prepared to bring the pieces together, to resurrect Turner's power and bring hope to the galaxy. And that's when the Necroids struck. It was an ambush, sudden and brutal. Necroid warriors swarmed over the ruins, their weapons spitting arcs of searing energy. Kara's team fought back with the fury of the desperate, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. One by one, Kara's companions fell, their blood staining the ancient stones. Kara herself fought like a woman possessed, her blaster taking a toll on the Necroid ranks. But it wasn't enough. A blast caught her in the side, burning through her armor and sending her to her knees. Through a haze of pain, she saw the Necroids closing in, their expressionless faces a mockery of life. She gritted her teeth, preparing for the end. But the end didn't come. With a surge of desperate strength, Kara's remaining team members rallied. They fought with a ferocity born of despair, buying Kara the precious seconds she needed. With shaking hands, she brought the pieces of the artifact together. There was a blinding flash, a surge of power that sent the Necroids reeling back. And then, "Kara," the voice was ancient, familiar, echoing in her mind. "You have done well." Kara looked down at the artifact, now whole and pulsing with power. "Turner?" Yes, there was a sense of a smile in the voice. "It has been a long time." "We need your help," Kara said, her voice cracking. "The Necroids." "I know." Turner's voice was heavy with sorrow. "I have seen what they have done, felt the billions of lives they have consumed. Can you stop them?" "Not I," Turner said, "but you can, with the power of the artifact." Kara hesitated. "I don't know if I'm strong enough." "You are," Turner assured her. "But I must warn you, The artifact's power always comes at a great cost. Are you prepared to pay that price? Kara looked at the bodies of her fallen comrades, at the Necroids regrouping for another assault. She thought of the trillions of lives hanging in the balance. I am, she said. Then take up the artifact, Turner said, and let us end this. Kara reached out, her fingers closing around the artifact. She felt its power surge through her, healing her wounds, filling her with a strength she had never known. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. With Turner's guidance, she turned to face the Necroids. They seemed to sense the change in her, the power she now wielded. They charged, a tide of metal and flesh. Kara met them head-on, the artifact blazing in her hands. She was a whirlwind of destruction, the artifact's energy lashing out to reduce Necroids to smoldering husks. But for every one she felled, a dozen more took its place. There are too many, Kara gasped, her strength starting to flag. Then we take the fight to them, Turner said, to the heart of their empire. Kara nodded. With a thought, she summoned the Federation fleet, drawing ships from across the galaxy to her location. They came by the hundreds, then the thousands, until the sky above the planet was filled with the glittering hulls of warships. At Kara's command, they leapt into hyperspace, following the trail of devastation the Necroids had left in their wake. They emerged in the skies above the Necroid homeworld, a planet transformed into a nightmare of organic technology. And the battle began. It was a conflict unlike any the galaxy had seen. Federation ships dueled with Necroid abominations in the skies, while on the ground, armies clashed in brutal close-quarters combat. The very ground heaved and shuddered under the onslaught, the air thick with the stench of ozone and burnt flesh. At the center of it all was Kara, a shining beacon of hope against the darkness. With the artifact's power, she was a force of nature, unstoppable and unyielding. She carved a path through the Necroid hordes, Turner's presence a constant guide in her mind. But the Necroids were relentless. For every ship destroyed, for every soldier felled, more poured forth from the bowels of their monstrous world. They adapted to Kara's tactics, learning and evolving even as they died. Hour by bloody hour, the tide began to turn. The Federation's lines buckled, then broke. Ships fell from the sky in flaming ruin, while on the ground, soldiers fell back before the implacable Necroid advance. Kara found herself at the epicenter of the chaos, fighting with a desperate fury. The artifact's power was waning, Turner's presence growing faint. Around her, her soldiers fought and died, their courage aflame guttering in the face of an implacable darkness. But even as hope faded, Kara refused to yield. She would fight to the last, giving everything to buy even a sliver of a chance for the galaxy's survival. With a cry of defiance, she charged into the heart of the Necroid lines, the artifact blazing like a star in her hands. She would end this, even if it cost her everything. And around her, the battle raged on, the fate of the galaxy balanced on a knife's edge. With a roar of defiance, Kara charged into the heart of the Necroid horde, the artifact blazing in her hands. She carved a path of destruction through the biomechanical abominations, their twisted forms crumpling under the onslaught of the artifact's power. But for every monstrosity she felled, a dozen more took its place. They pressed in from all sides, a seething tide of flesh and metal, their claws and blades thirsting for her blood. Kara gritted her teeth, pouring every ounce of her will into the artifact. It pulsed and thrummed, its energy lashing out in searing arcs that reduced Necroids to smoldering ash. Step by blood-soaked step, she fought her way deeper into the Necroid stronghold, towards the pulsating heart of the infestation, the Queen's chamber. She burst through the fleshy, pulsating walls of the chamber, and there, towering over her, was the Necroid Queen herself. A grotesque fusion of organic and mechanical, she was a nightmare made manifest. "Foolish creature," the Queen hissed, her voice a discordant screech of metal on bone. "You dare to challenge me? I who have assimilated 1,000 worlds, 1,000,000 species." Kara said nothing. She simply raised the artifact, its light casting stark shadows across the twisted contours of the queen's form. The queen laughed, a sound like the grinding of gears. Your toy cannot save you. Your mind will be mine. Your flesh will feed my brood. With that, the queen unleashed a psychic assault of staggering power. Kara screamed as visions of despair and hopelessness flooded her mind. Visions of worlds consumed, of friends and loved ones twisted into necroid abominations. She fell to her knees, the artifact slipping from her grasp. The queen loomed over her, triumphant. But deep within Kara, something stirred. A spark of defiance, fanned into flame by the memories of all she fought for. The laughter of children playing in the streets of her homeworld. The comradeship of her fellow soldiers, forged in the fires of countless battles. The beauty of a sunrise over a newly liberated planet. With a surge of willpower, Kara pushed back against the queen's assault. She reached for the artifact, her fingers closing around its pulsing form. "You will not win," she growled through gritted teeth. "We will not submit." She poured her memories, her emotions into the artifact. It blazed with renewed power, its light searing the queen's flesh. In the psychic realm, they clashed like gods, their wills colliding with titanic force. The mindscape around them shifted and warped, one moment a serene vista of Kara's homeworld, the next a nightmarish hellscape of the queen's making. But even as they fought, Kara began to sense something beneath the queen's malice, a deep undercurrent of fear, desperation. With a sudden flash of insight, she changed her tactic. Instead of attacking, she reached out with her mind, plunging into the depths of the queen's consciousness. What she found there shocked her to her core. Memories of a world on the brink of collapse, of a species facing extinction. The necroids had not always been the monstrosities they now were. Once, they had been a proud race, fighting for survival against a pitiless universe. But in their desperation, they had made a terrible choice. To endure, they sacrificed their very essence, fusing their flesh with the unfeeling metal of machines. They became the soulless abominations that now plagued the galaxy. Kara felt a surge of compassion, even for this monstrous being. She reached out, not with the artifact's power, but with her own humanity. "It doesn't have to be this way," she said, her voice echoing in the psychic realm. "There is another path. Life in all its forms is precious. It is worth protecting, worth cherishing." She shared her own memories, her own experiences, the simple joys of friendship, of love, the awe of discovering a new world, a new species, the satisfaction of overcoming adversity through courage and unity. "This is what it means to be alive," she whispered. "This is what you have forgotten." And incredibly, miraculously, the queen began to understand. Kara felt the shift in her consciousness, like a dissonant chord resolving into harmony. The queen withdrew her psychic probe, reeling as if struck. In the physical realm, she staggered back, her form shifting and warping. What have we become?" she rasped, her voice now tinged with horror. "What have I done?" With a shuddering breath, the queen made her choice. She reached out with her mind, not to attack, but command. "Cease fire," she broadcast to her forces, her psychic voice echoing across the battlefield. "Withdraw from Federation space. The war is over." Kara sensed the change rippling through the necroid horde, confusion giving way to a sort of lost bewilderment. As one, they began to disengage, their monstrous forms retreating into the depths of their ships. The queen turned to Kara, her form now almost pitiable in its brokenness. "You have shown me the error of our ways, human," she said. "We will trouble your kind no more. We will find a new path, one of coexistence, not conquest." With that, the queen and her brood vanished, their ships winking out of existence as they phased into hyperspace. Kara stood alone in the sudden silence of the queen's chamber, hardly daring to believe it was over. She made her way back to the surface, stepping over the wreckage of the battle, the artifact's glow now gentle and steady in her hands. She emerged to a scene of stunned disbelief. Federation soldiers stood bewildered, watching as the last of the Necroid forces disappeared into the sky. Slowly, as the realization sunk in, a cheer began to build. It started as a murmur, then grew to a roar. "Victory!" they shouted. Their voices joined in a chorus of triumph and relief. "Victory!" But Kara, even as she smiled and accepted their accolades, knew that this was only the beginning. The galaxy had been saved, but the scars of the war would linger long. There would be much rebuilding to do, many wounds to heal. And she knew with a certainty that burned in her heart that her work was not yet done. The artifact's power still thrummed within her, a reminder of the responsibility she now bore. She would become the guardian this galaxy needed. She would stand watch against the darkness, a beacon of hope and strength for all the peoples of the stars. It was a daunting task, but she would not face it alone. Even now, she could sense them, the kindred spirits drawn to her cause, warriors and sages, diplomats and dreamers, beings of every race and creed, united by a common purpose. They would be the sentinels, the watchful protectors of the galaxy. Under Kara's guidance, they would ensure that no threat, whether from within or without, would ever again bring the galaxy to the brink of destruction. As Kara looked out over the jubilant crowds, her gaze was drawn upward, to the stars glittering in the night sky. Out there, she knew, Turner's spirit still watched over them all. "We will make you proud," she whispered, a silent promise to the man who had given everything for the sake of the galaxy. "Your sacrifice will not be in vain." With a deep breath, Kara turned to face the future, ready to begin the next chapter in the story of the galaxy. It would be a story of rebuilding, of healing, of hope reborn from the ashes of war. Years turned to decades as the galaxy flourished under the watchful gaze of Kara and her sentinels. They became living legends, their exploits whispered in awe from the neon-lit streets of sprawling space stations to the farthest, most isolated colony worlds. Wherever injustice reared its head, wherever the strong preyed upon the weak, the sentinels were there, a shining beacon of hope in the darkness. But as time passed, Kara began to feel the weight of her responsibilities like a physical burden. The artifact, once a source of strength and wonder, now seemed to pulse with a dark, seductive power. She could feel it whispering to her in the quiet moments, tempting her with visions of all she could achieve if she just let go, if she embraced its full potential. Kara resisted, but the strain was taking its toll. She knew that as long as the artifact existed, there would always be those who sought to possess it, to use its power for their own selfish ends. The thought haunted her, gnawing at her peace of mind. One night, as she stood on the bridge of her ship, staring out into the infinite expanse of space, a terrible realization struck her. The artifact could not be allowed to exist. As long as it remained, the galaxy would never be truly safe. She knew what she had to do. Summoning the sentinels, Kara laid out her plan. They would take the artifact to the heart of a dying star, a place where the very fabric of reality was stretched thin. There, using the artifact's own power, they would destroy it once and for all. The sentinels, bound by loyalty and love for their leader, agreed without hesitation. They set out immediately, charting a course for the dying star. But as they approached their destination, the sensors screamed a sudden warning. A fleet of ships, twisted and nightmarish, was emerging from the stellar shadows. It was the Necroids, or at least a faction of them, those who had refused to follow their queen's path of coexistence. Led by a monstrous warlord, they had been secretly building their strength, waiting for their chance to seize the artifact for themselves. A brutal battle erupted, the Sentinels' ships dwarfed by the biomechanical horrors the Necroids unleashed. Kara fought with a fierce determination, her mastery of the artifact's power allowing her to shred the enemy's living ships with blasts of pure energy. But the Necroids were relentless. For every abomination destroyed, two more seemed to take its place. Kara's ship shuddered under the onslaught, its shields buckling. Around her, the sentinels fought and died, their blood staining the stars. Kara herself was badly wounded, a jagged piece of shrapnel embedded in her side. But she refused to yield. With a final, desperate push, they broke through the necroid lines, driving straight for the heart of the dying star. As they approached the stellar core, the artifact began to glow with a searing intensity. Kara could feel its power surging through her, a raging torrent of energy that threatened to consume her entirely. With a cry of defiance, she began to channel the artifact's power, focusing it towards the star's heart. The artifact pulsed, its light burning away the shadows of the void. But then, something unexpected happened. The artifact, as if sensing Kara's intent, rebelled. It lashed out, its energy whipping back on itself in a feedback loop of raw, destructive power. Kara screamed as the energy coursed through her, setting every nerve alight with agony. She fought back, pitting her will against the artifacts, but it was like trying to hold back a supernova with her bare hands. The artifact's power was too vast, too deeply ingrained in the fabric of the universe itself. In a moment of blinding clarity, Kara understood. The artifact could not be destroyed. To do so would be to unravel the very laws of reality. But there was another way. Focusing every last ounce of her strength, Kara began to draw the artifact's power into herself. She could feel it filling her, transforming her, her physical form unraveling into pure, radiant energy. The pain was unimaginable, but Kara held on, absorbing more and more of the artifact's essence. She could feel her consciousness expanding, her awareness stretching to encompass the entire galaxy. In a blinding flash of light, the transformation was complete. Kara was gone, and in her place was something new, something incredible. A being of pure energy, a guardian spirit infused with the power of the artifact. The necroids, confronted with this incomprehensible entity, fled in terror. The surviving sentinels, awed and humbled by what they had witnessed, gathered around the spot where Kara had last stood. There, they made a solemn vow. They would return to the Federation and spread the word of Kara's sacrifice. They would ensure that her legacy, her unwavering commitment to justice and peace, would endure. And so, a new legend was born. The legend of Kara, the Eternal Sentinel, guardian of the galaxy. The being who had once been Kara, watched over the galaxy, a constant presence in the currents of space and time. She was there in every moment of crisis, guiding the hands of the just and the brave. She was there in the quiet moments too, a whisper of encouragement, a gentle touch of comfort. The galaxy would face many challenges in the years to come, but it would face them with the knowledge that it was not alone, that there was always a guardian watching over it, always a light in the darkness. And though the name Kara might one day fade from memory, her legacy would endure as long as there were those who believed in justice, in hope, in the unbreakable bonds of fellowship that tied all living things together. For in the end, that was the true power of the artifact and the true strength of the galaxy, not the might of its weapons, nor the vastness of its fleets, but the courage and compassion that dwelt in every living heart. And as long as that light continued to shine, the galaxy would never truly know darkness.
If you finished this story, please subscribe and like the video. Then leave a comment that says, "I liked the story," and I will heart every single one of them. It really helps me. Thank you for your time.